Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jack and Emma podcast. We're really happy you're here with us today. If you're listening while drinking your morning coffee, walking outside, traveling to work, or relaxing at home, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something that sounds simple, but can actually be quite difficult: motivation. Our topic is how to stay motivated every day. We all have goals, dreams, and things we want to achieve, but the real challenge is continuing when we don't feel motivated. So today, Jack and I are going to talk about motivation, discipline, difficult days, and simple ways to keep moving forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited about this topic because I think motivation is something we all struggle with sometimes. There are days when you wake up feeling excited and ready to work on your goals. You feel energetic, focused, and confident. But then there are other days when you just want to stay in bed, watch videos, and forget about your responsibilities. That's completely normal. The important thing is learning how to continue even when your motivation disappears.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings about motivation is that people believe motivated people feel motivated all the time. They imagine that successful people wake up every morning excited to work hard, but that's not realistic. Everyone has difficult mornings, everyone gets tired, everyone loses focus sometimes. The difference is that motivated people learn how to take action even when they don't feel like doing it.
I agree. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings change. You might feel motivated today and completely exhausted tomorrow. That's why we can't depend only on motivation. We also need habits, routines, and discipline. Motivation can help you start, but discipline helps you continue.
I really like that idea. Motivation helps you start, but discipline helps you continue. Let's imagine that you want to improve your English. On Monday, you feel excited. You listen to an English podcast for 30 minutes, write down new vocabulary, and practice speaking. You feel proud of yourself. But on Tuesday, you're tired after work and you don't want to study. If you depend only on motivation, you might skip Tuesday, then Wednesday, and eventually stop practicing completely.
But if you have a simple routine, you don't have to ask yourself whether you feel motivated. You already know what to do. Maybe your routine is listening to English for 15 minutes every evening. You don't need to feel excited about it. You simply do it because it has become part of your day. That's the power of a habit.
And I think that's one of the best ways to make progress. Don't make your daily goal too difficult. If you tell yourself, I have to study English for 3 hours every day, you might feel overwhelmed. But if you say, I'll practice for 15 minutes, it feels much easier. Once you start, you may even want to continue longer.
That happens to me all the time. Starting is usually the hardest part. Sometimes I tell myself, I'll just work on this for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm already focused, so I continue. The hardest thing was simply sitting down and beginning. That's an important lesson. When something feels difficult, don't think about finishing the entire task. Think about starting. Instead of saying, I have to write a whole report, say, I'll write the first paragraph. Instead of saying, I have to become fluent in English, say, I'll practice speaking for 10 minutes today. A big goal becomes much easier when we divide it into smaller steps. Exactly. Big goals can be inspiring, but they can also feel overwhelming. If you want to run a marathon, you don't wake up one morning and run the entire distance. You train little by little. You start with a short distance, become stronger, and gradually increase the challenge. Learning English works the same way.
That brings us to another important question. What should we do when we work hard but don't see results? I think this is one of the biggest reasons people lose motivation. They practice for a few weeks and think, my English isn't improving. Or they exercise for a month and think, I don't look different. They forget that real progress often takes time.
Yes, some changes are happening even when we can't see them immediately. Think about planting a seed. You put it in the ground, give it water, and wait. For several days, you might see nothing, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The roots are growing under the ground. Personal growth is often like that. Your effort may be producing results that aren't visible yet.
I love that example because patience is such an important part of motivation. We live in a world where we expect quick results. We can order something online and receive it tomorrow. We can send a message and get an answer in seconds. But personal development doesn't work that way. Building a skill takes time. Building confidence takes time. Changing your habits takes time.
And sometimes you need to remind yourself why you started. When motivation is low, your reason becomes very important. If you're learning English because you want to communicate with people when you travel, remember that goal. If you're studying because you want a better job, remember why that matters. If you're exercising because you want to feel healthier, remember how you want to feel in the future.
That's why I like writing down my reasons. When I have a goal, I write a simple sentence explaining why it matters to me. Then when I have a difficult day, I read it again. It reminds me that the uncomfortable work I'm doing today has a purpose.
That's a great strategy. Another thing that helps is imagining your future self. Think about the person you want to become 6 months or 1 year from now. What will your life look like if you continue practicing every day? Maybe you'll speak English more confidently. Maybe you'll have a healthier body. Maybe you'll have completed a course or started a new career. Thinking about that future can give you energy today.
But we also need to be careful not to focus too much on the future. Sometimes people become so focused on their final goal that they forget to enjoy the process. Learning something new can be frustrating, but it can also be exciting. We should notice the small improvements along the way.
Absolutely. Imagine learning to play the guitar. If you only think about performing on a huge stage one day, practicing simple chords might feel boring. But if you enjoy learning each new song, the journey becomes much more rewarding. The same thing happens with English. Enjoy learning a new phrase. Enjoy understanding a sentence you couldn't understand last month. Enjoy having a short conversation without translating every word. Those moments are progress.
Another major problem is procrastination. Sometimes we know exactly what we need to do, but we keep delaying it. We tell ourselves, I'll do it later. Then later becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes next week. Before we know it, we've spent more time thinking about the task than actually doing it.
I've definitely done that. One trick that helps me is using a countdown. I tell myself 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I immediately start. It sounds silly, but it interrupts the habit of overthinking. Sometimes we don't need more planning. We simply need to take action. That's true. Overthinking can make a simple task seem much bigger than it really is. If you spend 20 minutes thinking about how difficult something will be, you could have already spent 10 minutes doing it. Action often creates motivation. We sometimes think we need motivation before we act, but the opposite can also be true. Taking action can create motivation. Exactly. You start walking and then you feel like continuing. You open the book and then you become interested. You begin speaking English and suddenly you remember more words than you expected. Action creates momentum.
Momentum is such a useful word. It means that when you start moving forward, it becomes easier to keep moving. That's why starting your day with one small productive action can change the whole mood of your day. You make your bed, drink some water, go for a short walk, or practice English. One positive action leads to another.
And the opposite can happen too. If you wake up and immediately spend an hour scrolling through social media, you might feel distracted before your day even begins. You may start comparing yourself with other people, worrying about what you should be doing, or simply losing valuable time.
That's why protecting your attention is so important. Motivation becomes much harder when you are surrounded by distractions. If you're trying to study, put your phone away for a while. If you're working on something important, close unnecessary tabs. Make your environment support your goal.
I agree. Sometimes we blame ourselves for having no discipline when the real problem is our environment. If your phone is next to you with notifications coming every few minutes, staying focused is difficult. You can make things easier by removing distractions before you start.
Another important part of staying motivated is having realistic expectations. You don't need to have a perfect day every day. Some days you will do a lot, and some days you will do very little. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human.
Exactly. Consistency does not mean perfection. If you miss one day, don't turn one missed day into one missed week. Just start again the next day. A mistake is only a serious problem when you use it as an excuse to quit completely.
I think that's especially important for English learners. Maybe you practice every day for 2 weeks. Then you get busy and miss 3 days. Don't say, I ruined my progress. You didn't. 3 days don't erase 2 weeks of effort. Just return to your routine.
And when you return, you don't need to punish yourself by doing twice as much. You can simply start again. If your normal routine is 15 minutes, practice for 15 minutes. The goal is to rebuild consistency, not to make yourself feel guilty.
Guilt can actually make motivation worse. If you constantly tell yourself that you're lazy or unsuccessful, you may become afraid to try again. It's much better to speak to yourself with patience. Say, I had a difficult week, but I can start again today. That kind of self-talk gives you energy instead of taking it away.
Another powerful strategy is tracking your progress. You can use a calendar and mark every day you complete your habit. Seeing a long line of successful days can be very motivating. You don't want to break the pattern, but even if you do, you can begin a new pattern the next day.
I also recommend celebrating small wins. Maybe you learned 10 new words this week. Maybe you spoke English with someone for the first time. Maybe you finished a difficult project. Take a moment to recognize that achievement. We often move immediately to the next goal without appreciating what we've already accomplished. That's true. If you never stop to appreciate your progress, you can spend your entire life feeling like you're behind. There will always be someone who has achieved more, earned more, or learned something faster. But that doesn't mean your progress has no value. And this connects to something we've talked about before: comparison. Comparing yourself to other people can destroy motivation. If you see someone who speaks English fluently, you might think, "I'll never be that good." But instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from that person? Turn comparison into inspiration. Exactly. Instead of thinking, they're better than me, think, they show me what is possible. That small change in thinking can completely change your attitude. Other people's success doesn't have to reduce your confidence. It can remind you that your goal is possible too. There's also something important about choosing the right goals. Sometimes